You should be open to the first clean page in your social studies book, notebook, in the social studies section of your vocab notebook. That's what I'm trying to say. And the title of your notes should be Chapter 3, Lesson 1, which is titled Understanding Regions. Remember, we learned about titles. You know, the first letter of every word in the title is capital. And then today's date, November 17th, 2020. Victoria, please sit down. Yes, Smith.
Page 70 is not in the book. It's torn out.
Okay. Whose book do you have Elsa's? Or is it a random book? No, I don't think it's Elsa's because she never returned books.
The last person that it says in the book is Shelby.
Oh, so that must have been the extra
I don't know
one.
whose book.
That must have been the extra one I gave you, so I didn't notice. Okay, just try to be careful. If you have some tape and you think you might be able to tape it back in, you can try. If not, just be really, really careful. Just somewhere, I just put it right underneath, so you can do that too. That's the name of this lesson. And then we know we're going to be starting with number 1. So we'll put number 1 to the left of the pink line. But we don't need it right away. Is that your pencil? Okay, you should only have 1. You have 3 right now. So put the other 2 in your pencil bag, please. I know it. Okay, I knew I saw it come from over here.
It's not mine. I don't use mechanical supplies.
Well, why was it thrown? Period. It came from that direction. Why were you throwing it? Period. Just leave it on the floor. And then we'll figure it out later. Do not throw pencils. I knew I saw it. No, don't drop it. Just put it down. Do not throw pencils. Have a seat. You should have 1 pencil. Put the other one in your bin right now, please. Keep the one with the good eraser. Okay. So we know we are going to read before we get to number 1. So put your notebook underneath your textbook. Put your pencil down. Scoot your chair in. Get in your good listening position. Feet down. Use your finger to follow along. Make sure you are using your finger to follow along. Otherwise, we will stop reading until you are ready. Face shields on. Thank you, Cullen, for remembering. Zadie, when everybody is ready and their finger is ready to follow along, I will let you know so that you may begin. We're starting with the lesson title. We're starting with the lesson title, not the first words. So finger ready to follow along. Waiting for everybody's fingers to be ready to follow along. You've got to move faster because we're all waiting on you right now. Where's your finger? Okay, Zadie, go ahead. Loud and slow so everybody can hear you, including everybody at home.
Understanding regions.
A little louder.
You are there. You and your family are driving across the United States from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific.
A little louder.
Day by day, the view from the window changes. You drive through the forests, grasslands, and deserts. You stop in big cities, in small towns. You try new foods like catfish in Mississippi and chilies in New Mexico. No 2 places are exactly alike. Yet every place has some things in common with the places around it.
And we're going to learn what those types of places are called. Where you have an area where there's something in common. That's what this lesson is going to tell us. So if we look at this picture down at the bottom, we see the United States with a bunch of little symbols on it. When you see the symbol, that means that area and the areas around them have something to do with that. There's something that this area, places in this area, share that has to do with this symbol. Like we see the buffalo, kind of right in the middle, which probably means there's lots of grasslands with buffalo on them in that area. And then we go up a little further north and we see the moose. Well, that probably means there's a lot of moose in that area. And then we go down to Florida and we see a palm tree. Well, that means there's a lot of palm trees in that area. And then we go way up north from there and we see a lighthouse, which probably means there's a lot of lighthouses in that area. And then we follow that red line to the other side and we see a bridge and some trees. And what is that? It looks like an old mission-style church, which means there's a lot of that type of thing in that area. Okay, let's go to the next page. Zadie, you'll keep reading. When I see everybody's finger ready to follow along, I will let you know. We're starting with the title of that section. So your finger should be pointing to the words in the title of that section, not just to that general area. Go ahead.
What are regions? Think of all the different landforms, countries, people, and industries that are part of our world. It would be difficult to describe them all at the same time.
Keep going.
For this reason, people divide the world into regions. A region is an area with at least one feature that makes it different from the other areas.
So, Zadie, what's our first word?
Region.
Region. You're getting other people in trouble. Region. And Zadie, what is a region?
A region is an area with at least one feature that makes it different from other areas.
So a region is an area with at least one feature. Remember, if you can't see what I'm writing, it is in the book. An area, that means an area of land, with at least one feature that makes it different from other areas. So when we talk about a region, it means it's an area, like a large area, that shares something. No matter where you go in that region, there's something similar about that place that makes it different from all the other places around it. Finish writing, and then when I tell you Kingston, you will read next. So everybody who has finished writing, your finger can be on the next section. Remember, it's in your book if you can't see it up here. Everybody who has finished writing, your finger should be in your book on the next little subtitle, ready to follow along. Bless you. Make sure that your finger is there so that when everybody's done, you're not the reason that we're having to wait. Kingston, can you tell us where our finger should be? A variety of regions. Try to finish writing quickly. When I see everybody's finger ready to follow along, I will let Kingston know. sure that when you're done, put your notebook underneath your book so that it is not a distraction and it's also not in the way. So your finger should be, Kingston just told us, your finger should be on a variety of regions. Just pause and go ahead. Make sure your finger's following along. Kingston, you need to be loud so that everybody at school and at home can hear you. Loud, loud, loud.
A variety of regions.
Yes, but not like you're actually yelling, but loud. That loud, just without the actual yelling, okay?
Each place in the United States is part of many kinds of regions.
Good.
The place where you live may be a part of an urban region, a coastal region, and a Spanish-speaking region.
If something is an urban region, what does that mean about it? If you live in an urban region, what does that mean? We learned this word. If you live in an urban region, what does that mean? If it's urban. We learned about this. Kingston?
It's kind of like a region of Illinois.
No. What does urban mean? Cullen?
It is,
Do you have an answer or are you still looking for it?
I found it, areas in the city.
So if you live in an urban region, that's what urban means. But if you live in a region that is urban, what does that mean about it?
You live in the city.
You live in the city. What does it mean if you live in a coastal region? Mason? Not the country. Carla?
You're on a coast.
Well, what does that mean? What does it mean if you're on a coast? Smith?
You live in kind of a beachy area.
You live near the beach. Come on, guys. Some of these aren't vocab words. They're just words that you should know as a fourth grader. You should know that coastal means on the coast, which means near the ocean or the sea. As a fourth grader, you should know that without it having to be a vocabulary word. So if you live in an urban region that's also coastal and Spanish speaking, that means you live in a city that's not far from the beach where a lot of people speak Spanish. Kingston, keep going. Everybody finger back where we were. Kingston, where do our fingers need to be? Tell us the first 4 words.
Instead, it may be.
Instead, it may be. When I see everybody's finger ready to follow along, I will let Kingston know so that he can keep reading. When I see everybody's finger ready to follow along, I will let Kingston know so that he can keep reading. Go ahead. That's not where we are, Mason. That's not where we are. We didn't get to there yet. Instead, it may be. Find instead, it may be. It's there if you look for it. Go ahead.
Instead, it may be part of a
Try it. How would you say you are? How would you say you are? You are. How would you say you are? You're, look, Kingston. How would you say this sound? If you added this, how would you say it? Earl. Rural. Okay?
Instead, it may be part of a rural region, a desert region, and a mining region.
What is a rural region? What does it mean if you live in a region that is rural? You should know this. Thank you, Smith, but I'm going to see if somebody else remembers this. This is another thing. It was a vocab word, but it's also a word that you should know as a fourth grader. Michaela? Not in the desert. They wouldn't have desert region twice. That wouldn't make sense. So rural can't mean desert because it says right after a desert region. Would it make sense to use two words that mean the same thing in one sentence? No. Victoria.
In the country.
So a rural region is a region that is in the country. A desert region, what is that like? Kingston? What does it mean?
Well, it's like basically it's just like a real it's in a desert.
Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean about it? Zari?
It's a dry place.
It's a dry place. A desert is very dry, usually also hot. So if you live in a rural region, that is also a rural region, a desert region, and a mining region. It means you live in an area that is out in the country. It is very dry, probably warm, and a lot of people do the job. They mine to make their living. They work in mines for their living. Okay, Kingston, go ahead when everybody's finger is ready to keep reading. Tell us where our fingers should be.
A region may be large or small.
Okay, Kingston, tell us where our fingers should be.
A region may be large or small.
A region may be large or small. When I see everybody's finger in that place, I will let Kingston know that he can continue. Please put your book on your desk and scoot your chair in. Okay, Kingston, you may go ahead.
A region may be large or small. The continent of North America is a region. The neighborhood where you live is a region too. Understanding regions makes it easier to understand the world. We can talk about places we can talk about how the places are like different.
Thank you, Kingston. Please read next. Cullen.
Regions depend on one another. Regions differ, but they still depend on one another. Animals in a desert region may depend on rivers that flow out of mountains regions.
Out of a mountain region.
People in Uber.
No, what does that say? Cover up the B-A-N. How would you say that? Cover up B-A-N. How would you say that? Cover up U-R. How would you say that?
Urban.
So put those sounds together.
Urban. People in urban regions depend on farming regions for food. These are examples of...
Chunk it if you need to. So find each syllable, read each syllable, and then put it all together into one big word.
Independence.
Close. You took out, you missed a syllable. Right in the middle. You've got inter right. You just missed a syllable after. There's D-E. How would you say D-E? D.
Interdependence.
There you go.
People and places depending on one another for resources, products, and services. Okay, make sure when you're reading that you read every letter and sound and word, okay? Even the small ones. So, Colin, what's our second word? Independence.
Not independence, but
Interdependence.
interdependence. Interdependence. Interdependence. And Colin, what is interdependence?
People and places depending on one another for resources, products, and services.
So, interdependence is people and places depending on one another for what, Colin?
For resources, products, and services.
For resources, comma, because that's items in a series, products, and services. People and places depending on one another for resources, products, and services. Because can one area have everything they need? Or one group of people? Is it possible for one group of people, one area, to have every single thing they need? Is that possible? No. Think about if you're in the middle of the city. Can you grow and raise your own food if you live in the middle of a big city like New York? No, you can't. So where do you have to get your food from? The grocery store? Well, where does the grocery store get the food from? Victoria. Farms, ranches, places like that, big factories, which you can't have in the middle of a city. Well, what if you live out in the country? And what if you need to go to the grocery store? Or you need to go to the mall? What do you have to do? Are there malls? Are there big shops out in the country? No. What do you have to do, Zari?
Get into the car, get on the interstate, and leave.
You have to go to the cities to do that kind of thing. Or what if you just want to go to the movie theater and you live out in the country?
30 minutes.
Do they even have movie theaters out in some areas of the country?
No.
No. So interdependence is when people and places, make sure to add that S, depending on one another for resources, like their food, products, like clothing, and services. If you need somebody, you live out in the country and your internet goes down, you have to call somebody from the nearby city who works at the internet company to come and take care of your internet, which Colin just probably had to do last week because I know her power kept going in and out. So that is what interdependence is. Not every person, not every place has everything they need. So they have to rely on other people and other places to get what they need. Okay, go ahead and turn the page. Now we're going to talk about kinds of regions.
Do I keep reading?
Yes, but hold on. Probably just that little part because your paragraph is kind of long. So when everybody is ready, you should be turned to page 72. Cullen, where should our fingers be?
Kinds of regions.
Kinds of regions. We are on page 72. Remember, your notebook when you're finished should be underneath your textbook so it is not a distraction. Please put your notebooks on your desk. Scoot your chairs in if your desk is too far. When I see everybody's finger on kinds of regions ready to read, I will let Cullen know. Just catch up with us. Go ahead, Cullen. Follow along with your finger, sorry.
Kinds of regions. People create many kinds of regions. However, regions can be sorted into four main types. Four main types.
Good. So we can sort regions into four main types. Pay attention because this is the most important part of the lesson. And you may or may not have homework on it. Hint, hint. Thank you, Cullen. Victoria, please read next. Tell us where our fingers should be. Political. That is the word politic, but when we add that suffix al, we have to kind of change the way we say it to political.
Political region. Political regions. A political region is a place where people share a government.
So we're going to add this as a vocab word. I have to erase these because I don't have enough room. I can have you write more if you're going to complain about this. So number 3 is political region. Victoria, what is a political region?
A place where people share a government.
A place where people share a government. Remember, regions are areas where something, regions are areas that have something in common but make it different from everywhere else around it. So a political region is a place where people share a government. So that means what a political region has in common is that it has the same government. Have you written this vocab word? Or you're just not going to do it? Okay, see you on your homework. Because you have to do it. So if you don't have this, then it's not really going to help. Okay. Victoria, when you're finished writing, everybody, when you're finished writing, put your finger where Victoria left off. And then go ahead.
Every state, city, and town is a political region. The United States is also a political region.
Good. Why is every state, city, and town and country a political region? Why is every city, state, and town and country a political region? Smith.
Because we all share the same government.
Good. Which partially means we have the same leader. So who knows what it's called? The leader of a town or a city. What is the leader of a town or a city called? What is that job title? Carla?
Mayor.
Mayor. Very good. Also, counties have a mayor. What's the leader of a state's government called? Michaela?
The president.
Not the president. Zari?
Governor.
The governor. And the leader of, well, the leaders of different countries have actually different names. It just depends on the type of government they have. But the leader of our country, the leader of the United States government is what? What is that job called? Tell me the job. Mason?
President.
President. So the leader of each of these governments has a name. That job has a name. So anywhere where they share the same government, that is a political region. Examples? What are some examples of a political region? What are some examples of a political region? Zadie, tell me one.
A state.
A state. Colin, tell me another.
A town.
A town. Zari, tell me another.
A country.
A country. Smith, tell me another.
A city.
A city. And there's one more that I mentioned. It's not in your book, but I mentioned it. Carla?
A state.
Oh, somebody already said state. There's one that I said. Victoria?
Country?
Not a country. Somebody already said that. Zari?
A county.
A county. Very good. Remember, cities are usually in counties. There's like cities, which are the smaller pieces. Cities are in counties, which are a little bigger. Counties make up states, which are a little bigger. States make up the country. At least in the United States, they do. Okay. Victoria, keep reading. Tell us where our finger should be.
Creating.
Tell us the 4 words where our finger, or the, first 4 words where our finger should be.
Creating.
When you said that word. Remember, it's not political. It's, there you go.
Creating political regions helps.
So everybody's finger should be on creating political regions helps. When I see everybody's finger on creating political regions helps, I will let Victoria know. Go ahead.
Creating.
Come on. Not political. I don't know, because you just say it. The more you say it, the more you'll get it.
Political.
Not polit, but
Political.
There you go.
Creating political regions helps people live and govern. Did I say govern?
That's the verb for government.
Govern in an organized way. All the people who live in a city follow the same local laws and have the same city limits. They also know exactly where their city begins and ends. A city's boundaries are borders.
Or borders, not.
Borders are set by law.
So, a political region has a specific beginning and end. That means we know where a political region ends. It doesn't just end and then another starts. Like, we know this is where it ends because cities and states have boundaries. We know when we've left Tennessee and we get into Mississippi because we see that sign that says, hey, you're leaving Tennessee, and then we'll see another one right after that says, welcome to Mississippi. So political regions do have specific boundaries. Other regions don't necessarily have them, but political regions do have a specific end. If we look at this map to, this diagram on page 72. That first map at the top is an example of a political region. This is the Midwest. Now, they don't all share the same government. Like, there's not a leader of these Midwestern states, but they do have the same kind of government. And we can see that it ends at exactly where those state borders end. Do you notice that? I'm so sad right now. We can see that Midwest, I forgot what I was talking about. My mind trailed off. I mean, I forgot where I was going with it.
You get a brain fart?
Yes. We can see that, you see Indiana is outlined in red. It is part of the Midwestern region. It has specific borders. It ends at the state borders. Because when you share a government, if you are the leader of that government, well, you have to know what people you're kind of in charge of making laws for, right? You can't just guess, oh, I think I'm in charge of your laws. You have to know. So that's why political regions have specific borders, because as a leader, you have to know, here's who I am accountable to or who I speak for. Okay. Let's do physical regions, and then we will have to stop for the day. We shouldn't have to, but I keep having to stop to correct people, so we do have to stop for the day. Okay, thank you, Victoria.
Wait, don't I read two?
You did. You read 2 paragraphs. Not 2 sections, you read 2 paragraphs. But again, sometimes you may only read 1, or sometimes you read 3. So when I stop and call on somebody else, you just know, okay, next time I may read more or I may read less. Okay. Are you ready to be a part of our lesson? Okay. Can you read next, please? Tell everybody where our finger should be.
Physical region.
Physical regions. So everybody, finger on physical regions. Mason, make sure that you are loud so that everybody here and everybody at school can hear you. I'll let you know when everybody's finger is ready to follow along. So your finger should be on the heading, the subheading, physical regions, because now we're going to talk about another type of region. Go ahead.
Physical regions are based on natural features. These features include landforms, rivers, climates, or the kinds of wildlife that live in the area.
Okay, so we're going to add this as a vocab word. So number 4 is our next type of region, which is what, Mason?
Physical region.
Physical. Bless you. Bless you. Regions. And Mason, what are physical regions?
Landforms, rivers, climates, and wildlife.
Well, that's what we look at, but physical regions are based on what?
Natural features.
So, physical regions are, or no, let's change this so it's in the same form. So instead of based, we're going to put a place with similar natural features like, and here's where we can put some of those examples. So what are some examples of these natural features, Mason?
Landforms, rivers, climates, and wildlife.
Landforms. What was the next one? Go a little slower so I can. Landforms,
Rivers,
rivers,
climates,
climates. Was that it?
and wildlife.
And wildlife. But don't put and, because we're going to add a word to it. No, actually, yes, because that includes, sorry. And wildlife. Okay, Mason, when you're finished writing, put your finger where you left off and then continue. When you are finished writing, put your finger where Mason left off. Remember, these are in your book. And I will let Mason know when everybody's finger is ready to follow along. Mason, can you tell us where our finger should be? Tell us the first 4 words.
Physical regions also may.
So your finger should be on physical regions, also may. It is in your book. You do not have to struggle to see this because all of these words are in your book. Go ahead. Oh, wait, I don't see everybody's finger yet, sorry.
It's bleeding a little.
Go ahead.
Physical regions also may be based on natural.
Try it out. That G is a, what is it? I think it's called a soft C, where it sounds like, G, soft G, where it sounds like J. Vegetation. Remember T-I-O-N, when we see it together, sounds like shun.
Physical regions also may be
A little louder, a little louder.
natural vegetation.
Very good, but a little louder so we can all hear you.
Natural vegetation is the plant life that grows in an area.
What's our next word, Mason?
Natural vegetation.
Oops, not 8. I don't know why I said 8. 4, 5. And it is natural vegetation. And what is natural vegetation, Mason?
A plant life that grows in an area.
The plant life. Is that a word that has a hyphen in it? Like that little dash? Nope, it doesn't. The plant life that grows in an area. So that is another thing that physical regions may be based on. Physical regions are based on the physical features of that area. Mason, when you're finished, go ahead and put your finger and tell us the first 4 words of where our finger should be. Everybody else, once you're finished, if you know where to put your finger, go ahead and put it there. Mason, where should our finger be? Tell us the first 4 words.
Physical regions are based.
Physical regions are based. When I see everyone's finger ready to follow along, I will let Mason know. Go ahead.
Physical regions are based on nature, but people still define them. A forest ranger, for example, might divide the United States into regions. These regions might be based on the kinds of trees that grow in different places.
So what that paragraph is saying is that even though these regions are based on nature, things that happen in nature, because all of these things, landforms, rivers, climates, wildlife, and natural vegetation, did humans create those things? No, nature did. So even though physical regions are based on nature, who actually went in and said, okay, this is this forested region? Who did that? Was it nature? Who did it, Mason?
God.
Well, but God gave it to us, but who actually said, who went out and said, okay, here's where this forest ends, so this is the end of this forest region? Park rangers or people. So even though they are nature, they're based on nature, humans, us, are the ones that say, this is this region. Mason, go ahead and read that last paragraph. Tell us where our finger should be. Unlike political regions. Go ahead, stop picking at it.
Unlike political regions, physical regions do not have exact borders. For example, the change from one landform region or climate region to another happens.
That D is a weird one that sounds kind of like a J. gradually.
Gradually.
So, think about it. We know political regions have an exact border because somebody had to go out and say, okay, you're governor of Tennessee. Well, this is where Tennessee ends. So you have nothing to do with the people that live on the other side of this imaginary state line. But think about physical regions. Do mountains stop just because the state is done? Do rivers end just because the country ended? Or do they keep going? Does the weather stop right where Memphis ends? If it's raining in Memphis, does that mean the rain is like, oh, this isn't Memphis anymore, I can't rain there? So, physical regions do not have exact borders because nature doesn't end just because the city or the town or the county or the state or the country has ended. It keeps going. So if we look at that middle map on page 72, well, we see Indiana again, and we see that it is in the interior plains region. Do the interior plains end just because the state ended? Pause for a second, guys. So if we look at that middle map, we see the interior plains go throughout different states. Please make sure you're paying attention. If we look, we can see that the interior plains are in a little bit of Tennessee, but are they in all of Tennessee? No. And we can see a place that's not in the interior plains, then we're in the interior plains, then we're out of it again. That's because, remember, physical regions do not end just because a city or a state or a town has ended. They don't have exact borders. They go all over the place wherever that landform goes. Who remembers who can describe a plain area? Mason?
It's a long stretch of grass.
Good. And there's a lot of grass. Are there lots of mountains in plains? No. Are there any mountains in plains? No. It's pretty flat. But are there some hills?
Yes.
Yeah. So plains are grassy, mostly flat areas. So we can tell wherever we see this orange interior plains region, it's mostly flat and grassy. Whoops. So far we can see that Indiana, the state of Indiana, that's that state lined in red, and if you are studying your states and abbreviations, you don't even need that word Indiana. You can see so far, Indiana is part of the Midwest political region, and the interior plains physical region. Well, we'll talk about another region that part of that state is a part of tomorrow. So, go ahead and close your books. We don't have time to finish today. We really should have, but we don't. Go ahead and clear your desks.